Hello lovely people of YouTube and welcome to another video on the channel and thanks for tuning in. So this one is all about, let me grab it, playing live on the Deluge. So using just the Deluge to play live. I've had my Deluge since, what, 2018 now? So that's about 8 years I've had that now. What you can do on here has changed immensely over that time, largely because of the new community firmware stuff, but obviously the updates that Synth did as well over the years. And yeah, it's a thing I've tried to kind of work out how to play a live set on for quite a while and sort of failed, but I think I've now cracked a way of doing it. So this video is going to be fairly lengthy. I'll tell you that from the start. There will be loads of timestamps in it, so just feel free to watch the bits that you want. You may need to rewatch certain sections just to get your head around certain things, but we'll see how we go. So first of all, before we crack on, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Patreon. If you sign up for tier 2 and above on Patreon, which is £3.50, $3.50 a month, you will be able to download the contents of my SD card from the Deluge. I will update the upload for that, so it will have everything that I'm referring to in this video. There's a template on there for my live setup and with all the transitions and all that kind of stuff. And there's quite a lot of new samples and other bits and bobs on there as well. So let's just kind of start off with what I was trying to achieve for playing live. So in the past, I've played live using a laptop with Ableton Live. So the way I kind of play live, first of all, let's just talk about that, is I split my tracks down into stems. I'm going to show you that in a second. And I have 8 separate kind of like track groups for bass and so on. You'll see that in a second. I'm going to show you that in an Ableton Live set. So that's one way I play live, and then I have I export different sections of the song, so I can kind of remix it live. So if I want to do the intro and then skip to another section of the song, I can do that. There's a little bit like, if you're ever familiar with DJing at all, it's a little bit like having hot cue points, or cue points during your song, so you can skip around the song into different sections, or I can play it in a different order, or I can remix it live. So that's one way I use kind of backing tracks. The other way is some of my tracks that are more of a standard kind of structure, like a 3-4 minute song that's got verse, chorus, middle, breakdown, or whatever. For those, I tend to kind of not do any live different version remix of them. I let it play from start to finish, how it was originally recorded. So with that, I usually just have one backing track, but then I take out the elements that I'm going to play live. So the elements that I actually play live are a mixture of some lead keyboard synth parts, some drumming, which could be like drumming on pads with sticks or finger drumming, but playing like samples or playing actual drums. And then quite a few of my tracks have 303 in, so a lot of it is then fiddling with the filter and the cut off and so on and all that sort of stuff. So the way I've done this in the past, I've tried various different ways of doing it, and I've always wanted to try and keep my set as portable as possible, my live rig. So I've done it using a laptop with Ableton Live, which worked quite well. I used an app called Touchable, so I had like a touchscreen way of launching all the scenes and so on. The laptop I was using wasn't the best in the world, so it was a little bit iffy on reliability, so kind of binned that one off, and very often you were just setting up for a gig and Windows would do a Windows update, because I was using a Windows one, and then you're sitting waiting for an hour for, while it's doing an update, and you set stuff basically. So I didn't like the reliability of that. I tried a Machine Plus, which that one didn't work. That one went. I've come very close on the MPC. So I've got an MPC Live 2, which is there, and over there I've got the Force, which is actually brilliant. I can do everything I want to do on the Force, which I have played live with, and it works really well. The only things that I didn't like with that was that it's quite a hefty unit. It's quite chunky, so it doesn't fit into a backpack very nicely, and it's not battery powered. So what I was aiming for was a kind of a completely just self-contained thing like this that I can take battery powered. I can go and do a gig in a field if I want, and with the ability to be able to play live synth keyboard parts, do drumming parts, which obviously on here would be finger drumming, and also do 303 tweaks without having to add any extra bits to it. What I also wanted to do was be able to do it like that, but also to be able to add extra external gear if I wanted. So that might be to be able to add a synth to that for playing proper keys, some drum pads that I use for some proper drumming, and potentially a 303 unit. So the Deluge can handle all of that because obviously we've got USB connection, we've got MIDI connection, we've got CV connection with hubs and various other things. I can achieve that. The thing that had let me down in the past on the Deluge was being able to kind of cope with all the stems. And in the old, because I'm doing this in the new grid mode on the song view, but in the old rose mode, it was just impossible to try and kind of work out all your song sections because you were scrolling up and down the page and all this kind of thing. And I also wanted to be able to do DJ style transitions where I could like take the outgoing track that was playing and then bring in elements of the new track that was playing and have a smooth transition from one song to the other without stopping. So that is basically what I was hoping to do. And I've fussed about with it for many years, but I think I finally got it going on the Deluge now. And it seems to work okay. And I've got a gig a week on Friday, week tomorrow, where I'm going to try this out. And basically just taking the Deluge, not even going to take a power cable with me. I'm just going to make sure it's charged up. All you got to do is plug it into the PA and I'm set up and I'm ready to go. But like I say, if I was doing a bigger gig, because that's quite a small, like 15-minute set, if I was doing a bigger gig on a bigger stage and I wanted to add all these extra bits, then I could also do that as necessary. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about how I play... Not how I play live, how I kind of prepare my tracks. So let's just switch over onto the screen here and we'll bring up Ableton Live. So this is one of the tracks that I've already got on my Deluge. If I expand all these, you can see we've got various tracks in all of these groups. So the groups that I use are, I have 8 different groups. I've got bass, snare, which can be snare loops, clap loops, that kind of thing. We've got percussion. We've got a kick. I have a dedicated track just for the kicks. Hi-hats, which can include rides and crashes. So sort of cymbals, if you like. We've got effects, and then we've got leads, and then kind of vocals and other synth parts that don't perhaps fit in there. So basically what I do when I export this is I would look at doing, say, okay, I've perhaps got a 16-bar intro. So I would take that. I would then, it's a bit of a pain, and it's a bit of a long-winded thing to do, but then I would like just solo that. I would export the first 16 bars of the bass, and then do that with all those separate 8 tracks. And then I might look across and think, well, I don't want this section. I might then sort of export this section, do the same thing, go through, do the bass, the snare, percussion, export those all separately. And then you end up with something like this. Let me just bring up the folder. In fact, if I just put the, I'll show you the folder on the Deluge. Ignore this. Okay, so this is my Deluge. Let's just get rid of that so you can not disappear into the vortex of OBS. So under samples, so that track I was doing there is called Inversion, which is here. Okay, so then what I do is I label each section of the song. So we've got intro, and you see in intro we've got bass, effects, hats, percussion, synth, and snares, and so on. Then I've got intro 2, which is the next section. Then I go into main section 1, section 1A2, builds and drops, and that. So I label it down into those different sections of the song. Try and kind of get it down to around about 8 sections if I can, so it fits on the screen nicely. Sometimes it doesn't always work for 8 sections like that, but that is basically how I do it. And then each folder has got those exported files in there. So while we're on the Deluge SD card as well, just my folder structure, what I set up right at the top is, and I always put number 1 at the beginning, so I know it's the top. When I'm browsing on the Deluge, it comes up first, rather than having to scroll all the way through these of when I'm playing live trying to find this transitions folder. And then in here, what I've got is the files that I use, the audio files that I use for transitions. So for example, Inversion, these numbers at the beginning are the beats per minute, so I know how fast each one is. So these are some of the clips that I might use for the transition. So this is kind of like the intro bits basically for that song. Again, as you watch through this video, all of this should hopefully make sense. So that's the folder I've got there. And then in the songs folder, what I do is I tend to name my things live like this. with a number 1. So this is my current live set for 2026. And then in there, I've got all the different song files. These are the song files for the track, the live template. And then within there, I've got a folder for the EMOM, which is what I'm playing next week, which is Electronic Music Open Mic, if you didn't know. And these are the tracks I'm going to be playing there in that folder, so I can navigate to those. Obviously, feel free to do your own folders up here and put your tracks in as you wish. But that is the kind of the folder structure on the Deluge. So I think probably let's get back to my face. There is my face. Hopefully, there we go. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover on the intro bit. So we'll switch the camera angle round and we'll go onto the Deluge, and I'm hoping you can see the OLED screen okay. And then we'll talk you through how it works on the Deluge. Okay, so here we're over onto the Deluge. Now hopefully you can see, you should be able to read the screen okay. Hopefully. So I've gone through a little bit, obviously, about the folder setup. So, for example, let's just... I'm just going to get rid of the headphones for a sec. So for a load of songs, you can see as soon as I press load song, I'm just hoping you can see that. We've got live set 2026 is the second one down. So I've got my tracks in there that I can scroll through. And as you can see, I name them with the BPM at the beginning. So they basically will go in speed order then. So I know the speeds of things. So if I want to do like a transition, I don't want to obviously go from a song that's like 90 beats per minute into 135 beats per minute, because a transition like that isn't going to work. And then within there, I've got the folder that I've kind of set up the tracks slightly differently in the ones I'm going to play live. I will do a little performance of these at the ends, but these are the 3 tracks I'm going to be playing at the gig a week on Friday. In terms of connection over, you can see across the back there, all I've basically got, let's move that there, is I'm just running it off battery. I did charge it up, so we should be good battery level. We're on 80%, we're fine. So yeah, I've just basically got the audio output going into my audio interface for recording this. And that's really all I would need to connect from playing live. It just goes straight into the PA and it would play like that. Okay, so that's a little bit more on the folders. So let's just load in so if I go to Live Set 2026, and down at the bottom, I've got a track called Live Template. If I just unhighlight it, you can see it down the bottom. So this is the live template. So we've got the 8 tracks across here. So these are the tracks that I talked about previously that I showed you in Ableton Live. So we got this one is the bass. So if you hold it down, I've labeled them. Oh, sorry, make sure we're on that. So you can see we've got kick, we've got snares and claps, we've got hats, we've got percussion, bass, leads, synth and vox, and effects. These ones down here, which you might not be able to see, but they're just about lighting up. These are my transition tracks, which are just basically the audio player tracks. So for a lot of these, I'm using the audio player, which is, I think, one of the new, I've lost track of when things came in on the Deluge, but that's one of the new things that has been added in one of the recent firmwares, where you can, when you do a new track, you can choose it as audio player, which automatically time stretches everything, and it seems to work really well, which is quite cool. So I'm doing all of this in the new grid view rather than the rows view, and you'll see why when I show you that in a second when I kind of walk through a track. But you've obviously got this, and you can then start to populate these tracks with audio clips. So for example, let's say I was going to put something in this track. So 2 ways to open that. You can go on the blue section there and just click on it. I like to keep it on the green, which is the launch one, but if you hold that and press clip, it will open that there. And then all we're going to do is we're going to go shift and then search for the files that we want. So let's say I was going to put something in from that track Inversion, which I've already got done previously, but there. So this would be my intro. So I'd find the intro folder. I'd find the snare. Okay, so you can hear I've got it set up to audition the track. So let's just turn that down a little bit. We'd bang that in there. And as we play that back. Okay, we can hear that. Now you'll hear I've already got a kick in there. What I tend to do with my kick is I'm using this as a kit. And I've just got basically a 1 bar 4 to the floor pattern on there. And what I do with that one is I've just got a weird click at the end. Let's just go to the waveform. Sorry. As you can hear when I play that, it's got that weird click at the end, which I've got to sort out. Hang on. Waveform there. I need to change the end. That's better. I need to sort that out on all of them. Yeah, I tend, as I mentioned previously, I like to have kind of a standard sort of kick sound throughout a lot of tracks. It makes the transitions a bit smoother, I tend to find, rather than jumping from one kick to another, because that tends to go through most of them. So yeah, I keep that kick on my template, and obviously can change it if I want. So we've now got those sections in there. So that would be the intro. There might not be anything else on that intro, but what I would then do is I'd just copy all of these down a row. And to do that, all you're going to do is hold the top one, press the one below. Okay, and that will copy all those down. And then what I would do is I get rid of the ones that have nothing on them, just to kind of tidy things up. And what I would also do is, this one, you can see section 1, it's already named as intro. So what I would do with this one, because at the moment it just calls it intro 2, which might be okay, but if I want to rename that, we'll just go into there and go into clip name, and you can click on that, you can type in whatever name you want. So what I tend to do for the song sections is I just name the clips on the kick row, or whichever is the first row in there, just so I can look and hold that section and think, oh yeah, that's section 3 coming up or whatever. So it just helps to find and name the sections like that. And again, this will hopefully will make a bit more sense as I go through a track that's fully populated. So let's just put one more in. So let's say on here, we'd bring, say, the hi-hats in. So, hang on. Okay, I'm going to go down to the Inversion folder, because I was on the other one there, and we'd call this is intro 2. So put the hats in there. Sometimes you might find if it plays back a little bit weirdly, trick I found is if you click on that one again, not that one, sorry, if you just get to the normal file and click on there, and then on actions, the top one, if you just click on that, which will set the clip length to the sample length, it will kind of time stretch it a bit more accurately, because sometimes you might have an 8-bar loop and it reads it as a 6-bar loop or whatever, and it plays back weirdly. So if you find if it plays back weird, just do that. It tends to sort most problems out. And let's say in that one, we might perhaps bring the bass in. There. Okay. The important thing to remember is to copy these all down before you delete any that you're not going to use. So let's just do that. Because I'll show you why in a minute. So now we've got those on, so we've not got anything on percussion, that, or that. Okay, so we've now got our intro part there. Okay, it will count down. We've got an 8-bar loop here. I tend to usually use 8-bar loops for most of my exports. We'll then go to section 2. Okay, you can hear then the bass and the hats have come in. I realised I deleted the wrong tracks off there. It should have been on that row. So what you'll find is if, let's say I wanted to delete some of these off this row, you'll see it starts to move them across like that. So you lose that kind of setup of your bass, snares, hi-hat and whatever. So that's why I like to try and keep it with those gaps in there. So I always know that, for example, that track's always my leads, that track's always my vocals, that track's always my effects, and so on. Okay, so that's how you kind of bring things in. So let's just load in the actual track of that. Where are we? There. Okay, so this is what the full track looks like. Let's just turn the brightness up a little bit, hopefully, so you can see it. Okay, so these are the sections. So we've got intro. We've got intro 2. Now, obviously, there's no kick drum on here, so I would probably label that one, which I've not done, or I would just put a blank clip in there. So, for example, this one. Where are we? I copied that down. Okay, and then just took that out. So there's nothing on there. So it's basically just a label, which would then go as intro 3 or whatever. We've then got section A. We've got section A1. We've got section B, and then this is the outro. These are the transitions. And then what I've stuck in here is a synth track, which is a part that I play live. Okay, so you can add those in wherever you want. If you want to keep your transitions there, just put your synth tracks at the end. You can reorder them if necessary. But for this one, I play some live synth. So this one, I tend to start with, even though I've got clips in here, I've got some of these muted when I start the track, because that's kind of like my, okay, let's turn this down a little bit. My intro section, which I would use for my transition, I would then probably bring in some things like that. If you want to bring stuff in immediately, just hold shift and it'll bring it in instantly for you. Okay, so then I can go through the different sections of the song. And again, we've got the countdown there, so you know exactly when it's going to start. Okay, and then we can go through those different sections of the song. Now, the thing with this one is, while going through the sections of the song, I need to be playing the keyboards part on here. And obviously I can't play that and keep switching back to there and change all of these. Now, if you don't want your song to, if you don't want to be able to kind of do different sections of the song, let's start that again. Right. If you want your song to play back exactly how you originally wrote it, then I wouldn't do it this way. I would do it on how I'm going to do the track that I'm going to show you in a second. Just let the whole thing play through. Now, you might want these different sections so you can bring different things in and out. Because, for example, on this one, let's say that's playing, you know, I might want to take sections out. So it gives you the flexibility to do that. If you wanted it just to play through in its order, all you're going to do is go on the blue section here and on repeats, make sure it says 1, and then it will go to the next one each time. It'll just play through the whole thing all the way down one at a time. Now you can see some of these I've got as repeats as 1 and some I've got them as infinite. So the ones that are infinite are the ones where I'm hopefully going to be keeping the groove going while I'm playing live. So the reason I wanted to do it like that was if the audience is really vibing off it and I've got a real good groove going, I could keep it going longer than just 8 bars, so I could let it repeat for as many times as I want. The ones that are played 1, I know that I only want this section to play once, and once that section is played through, I know I want it to go into that one. That one is only going to play through once, so I know I want it to go automatically to that one. So these ones are the ones where I'm going to kind of be jamming it out live, and I want to be able to have that play back as long as I want. Okay, so in order to be able to kind of launch those clips while I'm in this synth view, what we need to do is use the macros, which are these things down here, which are again one of the recent additions on one of the firmwares. So these macros will allow us to kind of map these buttons to launch different scenes over on this side. So the way we're going to set that up is when you're in song view, again, we're in grid mode. Actually, before we do that, if I just show you, if I do go back to row mode and show you how it used to be for trying to play live, see, these are all my sections here, the different colours, but you can see having to scroll down through a whole song like that without getting lost. It was just an absolute nightmare, and I just couldn't get my head around it very well. Grid mode, your whole song is there. No scrolling needed, obviously, unless you've got more than 8 clips, so it's so much better. Right. Macros. So to go into your macros, you're going to press your select knob. We're going to go down to configure macros and we press enter and leave it on that where it says configure macros. So this first one, this pink one, if I hold that, you can see that is mapped to this row here. Now you've got different options. So at the moment, that's not mapped to anything. If I hold it and press it, which one was it? Was that one, wasn't it? Once, that will just launch that clip or stop it if it's playing. And that's for that you will get a red button. Okay, if I press it again, now when it's blue, it will kind of cycle through the different clips in that that track rather than all the tracks at once, which I don't tend to use for my live set anyway. And then if we map it again like that, and we get a pink macro button there, when I press that, that's going to launch that whole scene. So that is what I'm using to launch the scenes whilst I'm in the song view. So that one is going to launch that scene. That one is going to launch that scene. That one is going to launch the breakdown bit. And then this one is going to get us to the outro. So did I change this one? That's the outro, that's the breakdown. Yeah, no, I wanted to change this one because I realised I wanted to be able to launch that one again. So I'm just going to change this. So I'm going to have that to launch that one. That's going to launch that one. Okay, so that's basically section A. That's the second part of section A of the song. That's section B. And then that is going to be the outro. That's better. That's how I wanted it. Once you've configured that, click OK and it will take you out of that. I just need to go back then and save that. So remember to save it in the state you want it to load in. That's important because we're going to be loading the songs in. Am I in the right one? Yes. Oh, hang on. Hang on. I've just loaded that. Instead of saving it on a Muppet, right, hold on, let me just go and redo those. I'll pause the video, I'll come back to you in a sec. So yeah, we're going to save that. And we'll just overwrite the other one. So like I say, yeah, the important thing is save it in the state you want it, how it's going to start playing. That's really important for doing the transitions, as you'll see when I get into kind of doing those bits in a second. So it's an important thing to remember. If you want the song to start with only these 3 clips play like I have, make sure you save it like that. Okay, so if we just go back into this synth track here, we can see we've now got these macros down here. These might not be showing on yours when you first go into there, because these down here you can assign different things. So we can have this row as a mod wheel, as chords, song called memory, and so on. I tend to just have that one blank. Obviously, because I've got macros on there, that's not an option, but if I change that, so you might be on velocity like that. So you're just going to scroll through until it says song macros. So what I can now do is, let's say I'm in this section of the song. So this is the bit I've been playing live. I can then just launch that next section. And that will do that in the background. Okay, go to the next section. And so on. If I want to go to the outro, it will take me to that one. The only thing that's a bit of a pain with these macros is, what would be nice is if you could hold it and know what section it's launching, because you can't do that at the moment. Whether that's going to come in a future firmware or not, I don't know. But you basically just got to either do yourself a little cheat sheet to have next to you when you play, or just memorize what they do. Because sometimes, you know, you can forget. If you've got quite a lot of macros, it's tricky to remember it. So yeah, labeling of those would be really cool. So that's kind of how I would do a track like Inversion. I'm going to deal with the transitions in a second. Let's just have a look at a track that doesn't have all the separate stems, which is, I did a remix of Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode. So that's going to look slightly different. That's going to look like this. So I've got a kick in there, which I'm not using. I'm just using that as a label because I got the kick on this track. So for this one, I've basically just got the whole track. If I scroll right out, my whole backing track is, so however many bars it is all on there. Okay, so all I've done with that is I exported that out with taking out any elements that I'm playing live on this one. And that's just, the whole track is just on one clip there, and I say that's just a blank thing as a label. So this one is a 303 pattern, which is just a synth clip with a MIDI, some MIDI notes in there. What would be nice as well on the Deluge, if you could import a MIDI file, would be great. You can't at the moment, so you've either got to record that in like out of Ableton, or with this one I just program the notes in separately. So that is playing. Let's just turn those off. This. 303 line. Now what I've done with this is to make it be a little bit like a 303. Obviously we've got the filter cutoff and resonance here. And then over on here I've mapped this to the envelope amount and then the envelope decay, which is basically all the controls you need for a 303. And I'm using a sawtooth for this one. And then on here we've got using the new grid view in on a drum kit. I've just got the samples on here that I'm playing. Okay, which were taken from the original stems of the track. So that's the other way that I would play live. So that's the two kind of the tracks. One's often like that, just with like the full thing, although it's broken down into stems. Okay, so we've been through the template and how to import stuff in there. It's fairly straightforward, but let's just have a quick look at that again. So all you're going to do is let's look at these. These are empty. In fact, I won't do that. I'll do it when I do the transitions because it all makes sense there. We've looked at synth tracks. Fill clips. Okay, let's have a look at fill clips because I'm using those as well. Let's just load a different track. I think fading. I've got some fills on here. I believe. Yeah. So that is going to mute or unmute the kick drum. Okay, you can see that mutes the kick drum. I've got on here a 2-bar snare fill. Okay, and on this one I've just got a 1-bar snare fill. Okay, now I hope you can see they play at the end of a section just once and then stop, which is great for drum fills. Where did I put those clips? Can't remember. I think they're down here somewhere. Okay, so this one is the 1-bar, so it's basically just a 16th note clip of 16th note snare drum fill. Oh, what you're going to do with that is hold the clip, press this down, and go to clip mode. We've got fill, which is on. I'll come back to that in a sec. So we've got once, it will just play once and then stop. Or we've got infinite, which is its kind of its default mode. So what will happen with fill is when I launch that clip, it will play in the last bar or 2 bars or however long this clip is of the section that we're in. So that basically means when I've got a 1-bar fill here and I'm playing, say, an 8-bar section here, it will wait till the 8th bar. It will play that on the last bar of that that section, and then it'll stop. Okay, so if I just show you from here, so this is, let's go from this section. Okay, I'm going to count the bars. I'll look this a bit earlier. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3. So you can see it's saying 6 bars remaining. And when it gets to 1 bar, it will play that now. And then just start. So it's a great way. You can have obviously as many of these as you want, different fills on here. And if we do the same thing with a 2-bar one, it would start a bar earlier. So they're really, really useful when you're in this mode, in this view, mapping those to the macros. And because these are just launching that one clip, they are red. So again, you got to memorize these. I just know that that's my 2-bar fill and that's my 1-bar fill, and these are all my different sections of the song. So that's fill clips. So they're really useful for game for live performance, for putting those little clips in. And then the final thing is we'll have a look at transitions, and then I'll do a bit of a performance going through a few tracks, showing you how I do those. So there's 2 ways of looking at your transitions. If you want complete flexibility and don't want to be tied down to this song having to transition into a specific other song, leave these blank. Okay, so on my main live set, let's just go back to it on here. Okay, these clips are all empty. So let's say I'm playing the outro of this track. Let's just turn this down so you can hear me. I would start to take elements out. This is the outro. Okay, so I might take these out. While that's happening, I'm going to go into this clip. And then I'm going to think, okay, what do I want to transition into? So let's browse. We're going to go to the transitions folder, which is right at the top. Okay, so let's say I want to go into the track Trust. I'd look at that, and these are just the ones I would use for my transitions. So I might put the hats on that one. I might put the shaker on that one. And I probably wouldn't use the lead at this stage, but we'll see. Okay, so what I would start to do is take some of these out. Now, obviously, we could start to fade those out. And then I might start to bring these in. Again, we could fade these in if you set the volumes at 0. Okay, so we've now got the hi-hats of the next track coming in. Let's start to fade this out. Okay, we've got the shaker now. So now we've got elements of the next track coming in. We've still got elements of the old track playing over here. We've got the new track starting to come in over here. Let's perhaps take that snare out. Okay, what I'm then going to do is load the next track that I've put those elements in, which is Trust. And then that will wait until the end of that 8-bar section. Okay, and we're straight into there with those elements kind of continuing to play. So that's one way of doing it if you want complete flexibility. Now, that can be a little bit time consuming. You might have to have that outro playing for quite a while you choose which next song you're going to play. That's not an issue if you've got plenty of time. But if you're playing a shorter set and you know the order of your songs, so for example on this one, I've actually already preloaded these into here. So I know from fading, I'm going to go into inversion. So you can see I've already got that in there. So when I'm doing the outro of this, okay, let's just take some of these elements out. And what I might do with these is turn this right down. Just start those playing and start to bring these in. Okay, so we're now bringing in that snare drum for inversion. So I might want to start to take this snare out. Start to bring these in, these hi-hats. I'll start to fade that bass out. Okay, we'll bring that next element in. Okay, so over here we've got the 3 tracks that are playing, that are going to continue playing when I switch to inversion. And over here we've got the outro stuff going. So let's just get rid of some more of this. Obviously you can make these transitions last as long as you want. So I'm happy with that. So now I would go into the next track, which is inversion. That's going to load. Okay, and we're straight into that next track, and then I can start to build that one as we play live. So that is how I do the transitions. That's how I have it set up. I tend to find that 3 or 4 tracks for your transitions is more than enough, because you don't want really any more elements than that playing. Okay, so that is pretty much, I think, covered everything I want to cover. So we're going to finish off the video with the performance. We're going to do the 3 tracks that I'm going to be playing next week. And hopefully you enjoy, and as you watch that performance through, it will, you know, if you're not sure about any of the bits I've talked through, then hopefully it'll kind of make sense once you watch that. So yeah, thanks for watching, enjoy the performance, and I'll see you in the next video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Bye.
All I ever wanted, all I ever needed is me.